Hi, and welcome to our Journalism Weekly podcast. I'm Christina, and joining me in the studio are Mykyta and Ellie. Today, we will be talking about cancel culture and the effects on journalism. If you all know about cancel culture, it's a huge thing that is happening throughout the few years regarding people being cancelled for specific things on about just what they feel about, and they become cancelled on social media regarding leading into people getting fired and other things. So, Makia, what is your opinion?
I have pretty hard relationships with cancel culture because, from one point of view, it's maybe good in some points, but in my opinion, it's become a really aggressive instrument to influence media by the civil society. So, because you can just make a mistake, say something inappropriate, and you will be cancelled everywhere. They're gonna fire you from your job. They're gonna stop collaborating with you. They will absolutely destroy your social media. All comments will be about, oh, you're sexist or racist or anything else. And of course, it's horrible things. But I think everyone has a right to make mistake. And sometimes cancel culture become a suppression instrument and creates a really, really kind of, you know, censorship, but not from the government, but from the society. So I don't think it's appropriate to use that aggressive way to explain some people, okay, here was your mistake, you know.
I don't know. I think you need it in a way as much as they learn from their mistakes, but they learn to never do it again. And then other people, because like a clever person learns from their own mistakes, right? But a wise person learns from other people's mistakes. And if you can see that and you understand the consequences, because there are consequences to good and bad actions. So, in this case, yes, typically bad actions, but if you're able to notice what is acceptable, what is appropriate, what isn't, and gets you cancelled, then it just makes things function just a lot more smoothly. People are less offended, and then you don't have these arguments and then people consistently going after each other. It just makes a better all-round environment for not just a single individual, but for everybody and communities, and it may actually bring people together.
Do you think that cancel culture can result into people being scared to have their own opinions?
Kinda. So what I'm talking about, of course, cancel culture as an instrument, may be good to regulate what people know, our people know what is appropriate, what is not. So it can be a good instrument. But what I can see now is that cancel culture was abused, as an instrument. So this instrument is abused and was used inappropriately how it should be. So I know a couple of examples when some people was just not very, you know, accurate and not very limited in what they saying. For example, in influence of good company or alcohol or anything else. And these small sentences or words, even words, just ruin their whole career. So if you're talking about it is good to let them know what is appropriate, what's not. But if they will be not able to continue their career as actors, as journalists, as anyone else in the media, so what's the point? You're just ruining their job. They're not gonna work anymore. So it looks for me not like teaching on your own mistakes, but about you made mistake, you're out. It's like when win or lose. It's not how it should be. And if you're talking about how it's going to influence on journalism work, for example, it creates censorship. Self-censorship, when you're afraid to write on sensitive topics or talk about sensitive topics, because you're just like, oh, okay, I may say something which is not what not will be people not gonna like it, and of course, as there is freedom of speech, you can say whatever you want, as soon as it's not offends anyone. But in today's world, everyone is offended some way, and it creates this dangerous situation when people not even talking about sensitive topics because they are afraid of being cancelled. It is what I called self-censorship, and it's really massive problem because sensitive topics needs to be discussed, in media, in any everywhere. It should be discussed everywhere to solve the problem of a sensitive topic and make it find a solution if it's a problem, or make it not that sensitive, if it's something else.
And what's your opinion, Ellie?
I mean, cancel culture was introduced because of horrendous actions. I do agree it can get out of hand, but in journalism it's our job to do our research, to do our due diligence, and if that's not happening and we allow it to continue, then cancel culture has lost its point. But it's still really important even in journalism, because we're able to identify easily and to allow the public to know, so we're not hiding from the public, and they can also understand what's happened, what's going on, and whatever the public do after that, after what we've told them, that's up to them. After the articles have come out, it's up to the public how they act and behave. But again, cancel culture, you do need it to an extent, because it does teach lessons. It really does, and sometimes certain actions you will never come back from, even if you're a changed person. And to be able to show the world that mistake and the reality of it is really, really important, even in journalism. And cancel culture and journalism can work hand in hand, but it's learning how to balance it and to appropriately use it.
With cancel culture, do you think it can help journalists do their jobs? So, for an example, if someone, like a fan or someone, they kind of expose a celebrity, and then cancel culture comes around for the celebrity, do you think as journalists it would be beneficial to investigate more on why they're getting this cancel culture?
Well, the problem is we are journalists, and I truly believe that journalists are not only a communication bridge between government and society, but also have some goals, like educate people, explain them topics which they maybe in their normal life, usual day-to-day life, they just not really thinking about, because there is a lot of different stuff around, there is politics, wars, some economical crises, some economical issues, and people if they not feel it on themselves, they're not really thinking about it. So journalists should explain, should educate people. And when talking about cancel culture, it definitely will influence, and it's already influencing journalism, because we are working for people, but of course we are listening for their feedback. Sorry, but we are also sometimes may talk about something what they not really want to talk, but it's necessary to talk about it. So society sometimes don't want like society, like anything like what we're talking, like people who lives in a country, sometimes they don't want to talk about some, for example, shameful parts of their history. If we're talking about United Kingdom or France, it can be about colonialism. If you talk about different countries, for example, I don't know, USA, it can be slavery. So anything like that. And sometimes people feel ashamed because of that, and they just choosing a way to not talk about it. A good example is Germany with the Holocaust. They explained what it was. They said, yes, we did it, and we're very sorry, and we should not allow to happen it again. In Japan, they choose different way to solve this problem. They just ignore it. They say it's not true. It wasn't in our history. No. And some people in Japan still don't know about these horrific actions, what Japanese soldiers did and their government did, and they think, okay, it's all false, and it creates a dangerous situation when it can happen again. And if you come back to cancel culture, I don't think that I will say, execution of person as a media person, as an influencer, it's not going to give a good result, because I think it is execution person as a media influencer, because he will be not be able to work anymore in this area, If I gonna say something and people cancel me, I will be not able to work for different medias like BBC, The Guardian. I'm not will be able to join their community and work for them. And it's just not gonna work how it was, It's a good example, like, oh, I'm afraid to do this, but it's not effective way to explain people that what is good, what is not. Because if we make an allegory with executions like as it was, so death sentence. It's not make some murderers or rapists think about, oh, I shouldn't do this. It just makes them to kill all witnesses, So it increases the crime rate. It's not work. It's not working. So I don't think it's necessary to create such a dangerous situation when you kick off a person from all media holdings, from everything, just make them shut up forever, and not talking anymore, because people changes their minds, and it shouldn't be like that.
So cancel culture and journalism hand in hand. From a purely journalist point of view, it does help us because it means we get the content. We can do our own due diligence and dive further into it. We can get the why, the how, we can get the nitty-gritty, but we wouldn't be able to see that or notice it unless it's brought to our attention. And the only reason why it's brought to our attention is because of that cancel culture, because people are talking about it, because people on social media especially are so open about it. And as soon as we've got our attention on that, then we can start releasing the articles, we can start releasing the short reels. And from a purely financial point of view, it helps us with our money. Every click, whether it's objective or objective, we get paid. So hand in hand, I do think they work really, really well together, because it just makes it easier to find the news. It also makes it easier to know what we're specifically looking for and to try and find more information as well. So I think they work really well together.
If we're talking about financial side of this stuff, I think opposite, because if we just give the opportunity for our system, also economical system such as capitalism, in which we live, if people don't like your content, they're not going to pay for it, they're not going to watch it, and it is how capitalism works. If there is no views, you have no money, and you can produce more content. So when someone's saying something inappropriate, something racist, something sexist, something really bad things, and this person truly believes that it's true, society disagree with him, they just stop watching him. They just ignore him. They can just ignore him, and he's not gonna have enough money from the views, and he or she, it doesn't matter, person, not will be able to work anymore. I know that some provocative stuff, because some, like, such as bad words, I will say like that, like, I mean, you know what I mean. It is a provocative topic, so people may pay more attention than usual if someone says something racist. And but if people will learn how to ignore properly, you know, it will be best instrument ever, and it's much more soft and much more. It's softer and more effective than cancel culture, when you just make person shut up and just leave. You know, it just explains to person who made mistakes that you made a mistake. We are not gonna work with you anymore. You know, as a society, we're not gonna watch it anymore. We just will ignore you until we will learn that this is not appropriate.
Yes, I get it, but going back to the capitalism bit and ignoring, people are horrendous at ignoring. They may have known what happened, but as soon as they see an article, they've got to click on it, especially if it's, you know, a catchy headline or exaggerated. Because I hate to say it, but people are intrinsically horrible. We really, really are. And yeah, we may not agree with what happened or said, but we still want to know more. We want to know where it leads, to see if, you know, the cancel culture worked, to see if, you know, appropriate actions were taken afterwards. So if it was truly, truly horrendous, worst case scenario, jail, people want to know that. People want to keep clicking. People will continue cancel culture because they think it works, and it's become such a big thing in our society and in a digital era that people don't really know any other way, and we're just so curious we can't like just ignore it and keep to ourselves. So that's an issue.
Well, I get your point, but you know, from this point, if we saying that there is no other way but make them stop talking, isn't it still freedom of speech? Is it still real democracy for what we are standing for? Is it still these values what we're staying for? Like, because I truly believe that a lot of people really want to live in freedom of speech, but they not really understand what it is. You know, it is freedom to say what you want, even if it is inappropriate, even it is bad, even if it is offensive. You know, because always, if you're saying something, you know, and for example, don't try to offend someone, or if you even try to offend someone, first of all, it's a problem of person who is offended, because he is offended of these words. You know, I can say, for example, I can say something about racial group. You know, because for example, in Ukraine is war. You know, and I can say that Russians are not really understand fully what their government did, and it makes them a little bit stupid, and it can be offended for Russians, you know?
Yeah.
But is it me trying to offend them because I just very hate them and I want them to die? Or is their problem that they just think it is not true and they start arguing with me? If they start arguing with me, I'm ready to argue, you know? So I know it sounds a little bit provocative and kind of, you know, sensitive, but I mean that it's not freedom of speech if you not allowed to say something just because it's bad, you know. Society can choose what they consume. They can choose what they want to hear in their everyday life. You know, they choosing what podcast they listen in the morning. They choosing what YouTube video or Netflix films they watching every evening. You know, while they doing dinner. And I know that platforms also censor what they allow to show on their platforms. But I think in social media, it's much more freedom in this way. And if we come back to journalism part of this stuff, you know, if journalist is not allowed to expose different opinion of different society groups, is it a real journalism? Because we are exposing, we are showing how is it today. You're showing what people thinking here, what people thinking here. Even BBC making some really good, interesting films about racist groups, for example, in USA. I forgot what is the name of this journalist, but he makes he makes film about neo-Nazis in United States, and he talks to them, he tries to understand them, and they make film. This film, of course, he exposed bad sides of this stuff because it's really bad. But I mean, they show it. They explain, well, there is this group of people, they thinking like that, they looking on different things this way, from these viewpoints. And we tried to understand them. Yes, they said what they are. Here it is, you know. It was quite objective, you know, as much as possible, you know. So why it can be in our everyday life, why we should cancel every single one who said something inappropriate.
Okay. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week with another podcast. Thank you for both of your opinions.